Homily for the second Sunday of Easter, Year B. The Resurrection and Faith. Our readings for this Sunday are from Acts of Apostles chapter 4, verse 32 to 35, 1 John chapter 5, verse 1 to 6, and the Gospel of St. John chapter 20, verse 19 to 31. Our first reading is an account of the nature and conduct of the early Christian community. It was a Eucharistic community, a community of Christ characterized by prayer, Christian sacrificial love, as well as mutual care and support. In the second reading, John says that Christians are children of God who demonstrate their love for God by the way they keep His commandments. The Gospel story recounts the second appearance of Jesus to His disciples, who were gathered in the upper room. This time, Thomas, who was initially absent and who had insisted that he would not believe unless he could touch the wounds of Jesus, was with them. As Jesus invited him to touch the wounds, his doubts disappeared, and his sadness was instantly turned into faith. The resurrection and faith. The early Christian communities were communities of prayer. The Eucharist and Eucharistic spirituality were the center of their life and worship. They were truly a community of love and friendship. They distinguished themselves by their brotherhood and their spirit of solidarity. We are told that no one hoarded anything that he did not need, while others lacked the bare necessities of life. We learn from these early Christians that there is no such thing as a solitary Christian, but that community is an essential part of Christian witness. One of the greatest mistakes that Thomas made, which many of us still make, was to cut himself off from the community when the crisis came. The consequences were alienation, doubt, fear, and grief. In his doubt and grief, Thomas walked alone. And outside the community of believers, he was thoroughly wounded and in need of healing. It is only when he rejoined the community that he encountered the risen Lord. It is then that he found his faith and his wounds were healed. When Thomas was told that Jesus had risen, he said, "Unless I see the wounds the nail had made, unless I touch his side, I refuse to believe." When he rejoined the group, Jesus once again appeared to them, and he turned to Thomas and said, "Thomas, put your finger here. Look, here are my hands. Doubt no longer but believe." And Thomas exclaimed, "My Lord and my God." Jesus responded, "You believe because you can see me. Happy are those who have not seen and yet believe." John 20:29. Thomas's demand sounds reasonable and logical. But while being guided by reason, we must also listen to our hearts. We must pay attention to our imaginations and give room for insights from deep within us. There are layers or dimensions of reality which elude physical senses, but which are nevertheless real. At the encounter with the risen Christ, Thomas soon discovered the foolishness of the conditions he laid out. He discovered that he could not impose his own limited categories on God. He had lost one whole week of joyful life in his doubt, grief, and isolation. On meeting Jesus, he cried out in worship, "My Lord and my God." Thomas's cry of faith became the most powerful proclamation of the identity of Christ. In one instant, he moved from earthly seeing to spiritual believing. The resurrection of Jesus was reassuring for the weak, frightened, and disillusioned disciples. When Thomas finally met Jesus, his own fears vanished, his doubt disappeared. He was healed of his blindness. A new fire was lit within him, and he was immediately energized to go on and spread the good news. Yes, on meeting Jesus, Thomas suddenly recognized his need to be filled by the surprising ways of God rather than insist that God meets his own conditions. That is why he made the powerful act of faith, "My Lord and my God." Like the doubting Thomas, many of us are often not there when Jesus comes. But we all need to be part of communities where our faith will blossom, where our hope will be sustained, and where our love will grow. We need communities of shared faith and possessions, of shared fortunes and misfortunes, and of shared joys and sorrows. Like Thomas, many of us insist that God must behave only in ways that fit our own expectations. We often refuse to go deeper, to savor the mysteries or the mysterious ways of God. So, like Thomas, many of us often lose our joy and our peace and live most of our lives in loneliness, doubt, and despair. Faith is the basis of the Christian life. Believing defines the Christian as service defines the servant. Faith, according to the author of the Hebrews, is the assurance of blessings hoped for, the proof of existence of realities not yet seen. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1. Faith is waiting on God, knowing that He is trustworthy and reliable. Faith is participation in the creative force of God. See Luke chapter 17, verse 5 to 6. Faith is openness to the God who does the impossible. By faith, a virgin conceived the Son of God. By faith, the crucified one came back to life. By faith, the early Christians were transformed from frightened disciples into bold and courageous martyrs of the faith. And they went far beyond where their human abilities could carry them. By faith, the mighty could be pulled down and the lowly raised. By faith, 5 loaves can be multiplied to feed 5,000. By faith, desperate situations can be overturned and dead ends can be opened. By faith, we Christians hold that all appearances to the contrary notwithstanding, light will outshine darkness, truth will conquer falsehood, good will overcome evil, and love will triumph over hate. By faith, the stone can be rolled away, and sinners can rise from the ashes of shame. By faith, the waters of sadness, defeat, and disappointment can be changed into the wine of joy, victory, and fulfillment. By faith, the mountains of fear and anxiety, selfishness and greed, violence and aggression, and hatred and vengeance can be displaced. Faith takes us where our senses cannot go. Believing is much more than accepting something as real. It is developing the spiritual faculty to perceive the invisible reality at the heart of all things. True believing enables us to see beyond physical sight. See John chapter 6 verse 40, John chapter 9 verse 35 to 39. The apostles had the privilege of seeing Jesus physically, but they have no significant advantage over those who know Jesus through believing. God bless you.